Hey there, internet friends, and welcome to That D Plus Show. Class is in session for the only show from that nerdy site that lets you know what kind of quality to expect right from the name. I'm your host, Trevor Starkey, and each week we dive into a different Disney Plus offering and discuss its history, how it holds up today, and the general impressions we have on it. This show is made possible entirely by support of our patrons over at patreon.com/thatnerdysite. So if you like the show and you can support us over there, we would definitely appreciate it. But if you can't, no big deal. The fact that you're listening is awesome, and of course, we would love it if you like, subscribe, share, rate, review, all that fun stuff. I try and I'm like, I've done this enough. I don't need to read from the script, and then I trip over myself and wow. Anyway, joining me today we have Frank Pisani. How you doing, Frank?
I'm doing good. Excited to talk about this one with you.
Yeah, this will be a fun little kind of sequel to one of the episodes you and I did last year. Last year, you and I sat down for the Lego Star Wars Holiday Special back around probably would have been like around Thanksgiving, Christmas time last year. And so yeah, as part of our Halloween month here, we are doing Lego Star Wars Terrifying Tales that came to Disney Plus last week, basically. We're a week behind on it just because of our schedules and stuff. But yeah, this is basically like it's there's a lot of like the same team behind the last one as with this as well. And so yeah, it had a lot of those same kind of vibes. Very different cast of characters, obviously.
Yeah.
But still a fun little time. So yeah, diving in, this was originally released October 1st, 2021. So yeah, basically last Friday. Has a runtime of about 45 minutes. And I pulled in here in the Lego Star Wars timeline of things. We had, of course, the holiday special that came out November 17th of last year. We had this Terrifying Tales special that came out October 1st. And TBD. This definitely ends with kind of like a tease that they're probably going to do this again next year. Maybe with a different set of stories or something like that. But who knows if Lego Star Wars will come out with something else. I mean, technically, I guess we're probably going to get the Lego Star Wars Skywalker Saga game
Oh yeah.
next, because that's supposed to finally be coming out, I think, in the spring. So yay, and that's something I've certainly been looking forward to. I've had that pre-ordered since for my PS5 since it got like announced as like a next gen thing. And it's just been sitting there like in my Best Buy like open orders queue for going on 2 years now or whatever, or no, I guess a year and change now. But yeah, that should be a fun one as well. The roll call here, who's who of the film. We have the director Ken Cunningham. I basically was able to just copy this from last year's doc because he was also the director of the Lego Star Wars Holiday Special. But prior to that, he had done Lego Marvel Spider-Man, Vexed by Venom, as well as the Lego Jurassic World Legend of Isla Nublar series of 13 episodes. And so yeah, then last year he did the Lego Star Wars Holiday Special, and now he did this. Similarly,
There's just a whole universe of these Lego movies and TV shows that just blows my mind. That like I am so not familiar with like more than half of them, and there's always just new ones that like I've never heard of that just show up.
Yeah, I mean, like it's very much like the games. They basically like do all the different licensing deals that they get, and then they go and they're like, hey, do you want to make some fun little Lego stories for like kids? And they're like, sure, we'll do that. So similarly to Ken Cunningham here, David Shane is the writer of this, who also wrote the Lego Star Wars Holiday Special. So basically that team just completely coming back and working on this. He's also done a lot of other Lego Star Wars stuff, or not even confined to Lego, but to Star Wars. He's done a lot of Lego episodes and shorts, and he'd also written a couple episodes of Phineas and Ferb. That was one of them things that we caught last time. Starring, we have a bevy of actors in here, some kind of mainstays of the Lego verse, and then others that are just kind of like, oh, that's very weird to be hearing their voice. Jake Green, returning as Poe Dameron. He was Poe in the Lego Holiday Special as well. We also have, he was last time around, he was additional voices in Final Fantasy VII Remake, Last of Us Part 2, and Spider-Man Miles Morales, which were basically like the big games last year. He has since added to his gaming catalog. He was an additional voice in Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart this year, and then he was also
Nice.
in one of Frank and my favorite games of 2021, The Artful Escape.
Oh, nice.
He's the elevator lift guy on
Oh, yeah.
on the ship, as well as like a couple other miscellaneous things. Rafael Alejandro is playing young Dean in this, who like was recently in the Jungle Cruise movie. He had a handful of other things in there, but like the Jungle Cruise one jumped out at me. I was like, who could he have been in the Jungle Cruise? And I'm like, oh, in Jungle Cruise, there's like this kid who has like one scene where the Rock is basically like having an engine lowered into the ship, and the kid is the one like wheeling the crank, and they have a little bit of back and forth, and I'm like, I guess that's probably who that was. Like, but I don't know. He played a character, Yakim, I think, or maybe it was Joaquin. I don't know. Yeah, but he was in Jungle Cruise. We have, of course, Tony Hale playing Vinay, who, of course, best known from stuff like Arrested Development and Veep, or is the voice of Forky in Toy Story 4. He can also be seen on Disney Plus recently in The Mysterious Benedict Society, which I've not watched, but I remember seeing like that as like the front page of Disney Plus every week when I would go in and do some of these shows. Probably like during our summer of Star Wars, he was just like, boom, there, he's plastered on the screen. We have Christian Slater playing Ren, who probably kind of had his breakout role with the movie Heathers back in the 80s. I always remember him from the movie Broken Arrow with John Travolta, which is basically about like a nuclear bomb, going rogue or whatever. I feel like I watched that way too many times, and specifically I have like very distinct memories of watching that on like one of the first cruises I ever did. It was like one of the movies that was in like the onboard entertainment or whatever, so I just watched it there when I was like in the cruise in the room.
Had you already seen it at that point, or were you just like, was this the first time?
I don't remember really at that point. Like it might have been the first time, and then I watched it a few more times there. Like that's the memory I have of Broken Arrow is watching it in the cruise like room. I keep wanting to say like cruise hotel room. It's like, no, that's it. It wasn't a hotel, but yeah. Like I may have watched it. It may have been like one of those movies that was on elsewhere, but yeah, he was also in a few episodes of The West Wing, which I throw in here as a shout out to Logan, of course. He was a guest star on one of the seasons of Archer. And then this was news to me as somebody who doesn't watch Mr. Robot, but apparently he is the voice of the titular Mr. Robot.
I haven't seen that either. I've been meaning to watch it, but that does make me laugh because I didn't realize there was literally a character called Mr. Robot.
Yeah, I imagine it's a similar thing to like what was it? Not Broadchurch. It was the movie or the show last year where everybody was like going nuts about like, oh, it's so horny and sexy. What was it? Netflix. Like Elizabethan show or whatever. It had
I'm curious.
Renee Jean Page or something like that. So there we go. Netflix. Bridgerton's the show.
Oh,
I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Like because there's like a character in Bridgerton that's like it's I guess it's also like the Gossip Girl kind of thing where it's like it's Lady Bridgerton or whatever. Is she Bridgerton? No, that's got to be it. I watched that whole show in like a day or whatever, and it's just clearly like this is the problem with binging shows is they just go in and out. Lady whatever, Whistledown maybe or something like that. Whoever like the like character is who's like spreading all this gossip around town was like voiced by friggin' Julie. Oh God, now I'm blanking on her name too. Mary Poppins.
Julie Andrews.
Julie Andrews.
No, that
thank
was
you. Yeah. She voiced like the narration of the character, even though she's not actually seen in the series. So I imagine it's one of those kinds of things where it's like, you don't actually see Christian Slater's voice, but he does the voiceover. Or I guess like Bob Saget was the father in How I Met Your Mother, even though it's obviously Ted Mosby.
Yeah.
And that actor, but. Anyway, dumb little tangent there. But yeah, I like Christian Slater done a lot of things, and it's always like weird to like hear when his voice pops up. I'm like, what was his big thing? Because he always strikes me as like, oh, is he one of those guys that was in like Beverly Hills 90210 or something like that? And it's like, no, he was just in stuff around that time too. But yeah.
That's what I'm totally with you, because whenever I think of him, I don't think of one specific thing. I just think like, yeah, he's always just around stuff.
He's just been there. He's just been there my entire life. Yeah. Dana Snyder playing Grabala the Hutt here. Of course, iconically Master Shake from Aqua Teen Hunger Force. Even as somebody who has never really watched an episode of Aqua Teen Hunger Force, I was watching enough Cartoon Network and Adult Swim during that era that like I was seeing him all over the time, or like seeing that character all the time. And he is, of course, a Cartoon Network and Adult Swim mainstay. Tons of credits on there, but Master Shake is certainly the one that jumps out probably the most.
I was trying to figure out where I recognized that voice from, because it was so familiar, and I knew I had seen it in cartoons or something before. But no, now that you say, yeah, it was the guy who does Master Shake, I'm like, yeah, it was 100%.
Yep.
And he's doing the same voice.
He's just doing the Master Shake voice. Yeah, yep. A little more gravelly maybe, but. We have Danny Jacobs in here playing Ram Watto and in a protocol droid. I just pulled him in here because he also is the voice of Hank Pym in Marvel's Avengers. So shout out to Greg Miller as being one of the other people that played that game like me. James Arnold Taylor, of course, reprising his role as Obi-Wan Kenobi. He also does the goofy role of Cosler in one of the stories. Has been playing Obi-Wan in all the Clone Wars related stuff, and then of course he is also Ratchet and Ratchet and Clank, and a number of other games. Tidus from Final Fantasy X, for example. John DiMaggio, speaking of games and voice acting and whatnot, playing Bosch and Uncle Owen in this. Of course, probably best known as Bender in Futurama, but also, in the video game space, best known maybe as Marcus Phoenix in the Gears of War series, and he's in like a billion other things. So he's also he's Waka in Final Fantasy X. So like you got kind of them reuniting, James Arnold Taylor and John DiMaggio. Eric Bauza plays Luke Skywalker in this, and this just jumped out at me. He's also in Space Jam: A New Legacy that came out earlier this year as like the voice of like Porky Pig and Daffy Duck and a couple other characters, I think. So apparently he's in that scene. Matt Sloan playing Darth Vader once again. He also played Vader in last year's holiday special, and he's been the voice of Vader in things going all the way back to The Force Unleashed, as well as and it'll come up in one of the trivia things, but as well as his like Chad Vader series, like his YouTube series before that. Matthew Wood
does a good job, so I can see why they they kind of picked him, and they're like, and he's just the guy.
Yep. Matthew Wood, of course, best known as Grievous, as well as the battle droids. I basically just again copied my thing from last year. Sound editor by day, perhaps best known as the voice of General Grievous. But adding to that, he was also recently in the What If series as basically miscellaneous voices across the episodes, and he was also Bib Fortuna in the season 2 finale of The Mandalorian. In part, as I found out in like one of the behind the scenes things, he basically was Bib Fortuna in like The Phantom Menace as well. Like he played Bib Fortuna in like the pod racing at the Boon to Eve Classic kind of thing. He's in there, and so it was like it was him getting to go back to the role 15 years later or whatever for the Mandalorian. And he also in addition to doing Grievous and the battle droids in this, he also adds on the role of Ben Solo / Kylo Ren.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Sam Witwer has been Darth Maul in many, many things. He was also Starkiller in The Force Unleashed. He's also in Days Gone. He was Deacon in Days Gone. And here in this, he is Darth Maul and Trudgeon. I don't remember which character Trudgeon was. Probably one of the goons in one of the other things. Shelby Young playing Princess Leia Organa came up recently because she was one of the people in the Star Wars Visions series. I believe she played the robot in the Tatooine Rhapsody episode. She was the voice of that robot lady, guitarist, or bassist. I don't remember what she played. But I was like, I recognize this name. Why do I recognize this name? And then sure enough, right there in the credits. And then lastly, Trevor Duvall reprising his role as Palpatine from last year's holiday special. He also adds on as Grand Moff Tarkin in this episode. As I highlighted last year, he was Andrea Rodea in Final Fantasy VII Remake, as well as Rocket Raccoon in Guardians of the Galaxy and the Avengers Assemble series that ran from like 2015 through 2019. And he's been Palpatine in other assorted Lego Star Wars things, and very much just seems to continually be channeling the Seth MacFarlane version of Emperor Palpatine, but like a little bit more PG-ified.
It really sounds like that. Like when he was doing some of the stuff, I was like, man, that really does sound like Seth MacFarlane. Like I had the same thought when I was watching it.
Yeah, he's going for that attitude of Palpatine. That's just like iconically from the Family Guy parodies, as well as the Robot Chicken parodies, because he voices Palpatine on those as well. A little bit of trivia here. We have, as I mentioned, Matt Sloan voicing the Darth Vader became well known amongst YouTubers as Darth's quote brother Chad Vader in Chad Vader Day Shift Manager. When Poe's helmet spins round on his head as he crash lands on Mustafar, the Aurebesh writing is visible. As on the movie version, it translates to Roehal, I guess, Roaehal. A more serious version of Ben Solo's meeting with Ren and his knights was presented in the 4-part Marvel comic book series The Rise of Kylo Ren, published December 2019 through March 2020. And then lastly, despite taking place after episode 9, Poe Dameron has gone back to wearing the same kind of jacket he wore at the start of episode 7 and later gave away to Finn. Thanks for that, continuity nerds that update IMDb. Much appreciate.
It's true. It's true. Yep. Like as soon as you said it, I was like, yep. Yeah, he is wearing the jacket he gave away.
Yep. He had another one. That's all. Yep. So what did you think of Terrifying Tales here, Frank? You were my ride or die last year when we did the Lego Star Wars Holiday Special. So I'm glad we got together again for this sequel. The rest of our summer of Star Wars crew flaked and bailed on us. So we're the two diehards here. What did you think?
The true Star Wars fans.
Yeah. What did you think of Terrifying Tales?
I liked it. Going back to the holiday special that we did before, I was kind of surprised by that one because I just kind of sat down and really didn't know what to expect, and I thought that was actually really fun and really good. And this is a lot of the same. I like the other holiday one a little bit more, and I thought it was a little bit funnier in some of the jokes it had. But this was still like a light, fun time, and it still plays with Star Wars in like a fun way. You're very much right, where it's just kind of like a treehouse of terrors, just kind of like where it's just kind of telling you a bunch of different stories and kind of adding jokes in here and there. But I still like what they did with it. My favorite one was when they the one with Luke and the way it kind of like tells, where I was like, that's almost like a legit what if of like what would happen if he went and joined the Imperial pilot program. But that was I thought that was super fun, and I thought that had like the funniest jokes in it, in the way it like played with Star Wars, like when he puts the helmet on and he's the guy that bumps into the the door that's closing, and then even the same thing when she's like they give him the flight suit, they're like, yeah, you're too short to be a stormtrooper. And I thought all that was like really funny.
Yeah, I appreciate that one as well. It was very much. I'm in agreement with you. Like the holiday special was, I think, a little bit more fun because they were playing with like the time travel aspect, so they had like different eras matching up with one another. Even though, like as I think we pointed out when we did that, like that is actually a very small part of that episode. There's like a whole bunch of other stuff going on there that's just like Rey isn't like cut out to be a teacher of Finn, and she's struggling with that kind of stuff. And it wasn't until like the third act you finally get to like the fun bits of let's play around with the timelines. Whereas this is just kind of like the framing of Poe landing on Mustafar and they're turning Vader's castle into like a resort casino kind of thing. It's like, okay, well that's weird. And then you have Vinay, who's actually, that is the same character that got introduced in Rogue One as like Vader's like assistant, who like when Krennic shows up, because I looked this up, I was like, is that who that guy's supposed to be? Because we obviously get that kind of like prologue of Vader and Palpatine and Vinay there. And yep, that's who that character is in Rogue One. Is his assistant Vinay or whatever. So I love that, like, there's just little hints like that is kind of fun.
Mm.
But then yeah, as soon as he kind of turns it into like, okay, I'm going to use this to tell these stories, and it turns into Treehouse of Terror, especially like because I feel like The Monkey's Paw is one of those like iconic Treehouse of Terror stories. So the fact that they just like basically are like, we're just going to call it The Wookiee's Paw, and it's going to be the same premise, same idea of like, be careful what you wish for, and obviously that's The Monkey's Paw is a horror story that long precedes The Simpsons, but I think certainly for my generation, like, that's what I think of when I think of The Monkey's Paw story. um and so yeah, I like, that's certainly my favorite as well. Because like, I think in large part because I'm like, the first one I'm just thinking like, this this doesn't line up with like what the movies told us about these kind of interactions, and Kylo's fall from grace or whatever. It's like, I thought he basically destroyed the temple and then went and joined the Knights of Ren or whatever. But whatever, that's all. Like, I think probably all three movies kind of fight with with what that relationship with Ren and the Knights of Ren, or yeah, Kylo and the Knights of Ren were. um but yeah, so that there was that one, and then like the second one was just like, oh, this is like, I guess, fun if you like the Clone Wars and the prequels and stuff like that. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
here's Maul versus Grievous, which I guess we didn't really get. I feel like we didn't get that. And then I did like the bit where, like, right at the beginning of that story, when they give Maul the like the giant spider legs,
Yeah.
it cuts out and Poe's just like, wait, you're telling me guy gets split in half and he's fine, he magically gets given new legs? That's a little far-fetched or whatever. And I'm just like Poe Dameron just completely dismissing one of the most iconic storylines of the Clone Wars series. Shout out to that audacity. um yeah, it was like a fun little battle of the minds between Maul and Grievous. But yeah, I agree that I think the what if Elseworlds kind of approach to A New Hope of like, what if Luke joined the Empire instead of the Rebellion, like, and we still get so many of those, like, little touchstones. But yeah, as I mentioned the other night when we were talking about this, like, to tease it to Luke, or to Logan, like, I love that, still away from all this, like, Obi-Wan still, got the droids and still managed to get into the Death Star and save Leia. And then, didn't die because he didn't have to like sacrifice himself for Luke. And ends up getting Luke's spot as Red 5. And and Leia's just leading the charge. So apparently something also happened to Red Leader, but whatever. But yeah, I like that as kind of like maybe Red Leader was in the maybe Luke killed him as part
Oh
of
yeah.
when Luke saves Vader in there. But yeah, it was a fun, just like, and the extra little nods that they had to that were nice little touches, as you kind of touched on, like the helmet issue, the you're too short to be a stormtrooper. I have any other ones? Like the training montage that Vader and Luke have, where he does the like the blast shield helmet kind of thing. He teaches, like, one we never got with actual Luke, but Vader teaching Luke how to force choke somebody.
Yeah.
And you just have kind of the Imperial, like, officers sitting there like waiting their turn patiently and also in terror. Um, Vader on Luke's back, a la Yoda. And then my favorite was, of course, the Luke and Leia, like, for luck kiss that Vader
Yeah.
just gives him anyway. It's like, all right, yep, you totally went there with it. Sure, go ahead, knock yourself out. Lego Star Wars, you guys have some fun with that. Any other highlights or bits that really jumped out at you?
Yeah, I was trying to think because I feel like there was one or two more that I did think were that was kind of funny, but that the Luke ones were definitely, I think, the main ones that I definitely liked. I thought it was funny how they did make out like the other Jedis that were training to just be like the worst. Like I thought that was funny where I'm like, nah, I kind of get why Kylo wanted to leave. Like
Yeah.
look at all these chumps.
And even Luke is like, oh, not again, Cosler, because he can't even do the rocks thing or whatever. Yeah. Yeah, they do kind of suck. I did like the in the Lost Boy one. Ben has that 80s montage with the Knights of Ren, complete with, as I took my notes, a Bith playing that clue horn, and they basically like shout out like, yeah, play that clue horn, just to be like, this is the nerdiest reference that anybody's gonna like, but yeah, because it's basically just that like, almost that like iconic saxophone-esque kind of riff in those classic 80s montages. They also do that weird thing of like how they, I mean, it's much like Solo and Rey Skywalker. They just had to figure out a way to give us Kylo Ren's name. So we get that Kylo is basically like a taunt, meaning, small or weak or scared. Kylo. And he's like, no, I'm starting to like it. Yeah.
That was when I was like, oh, whoever wrote this likes My Hero Academia.
Yeah, there you go.
Like, that's exactly what I took from that.
It's basically the Deku. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm trying to see. I'm a sucker for these kinds of things, but I loved how long Maul falls when Palpatine throws him off the edge, and how long we just hear that scream, because it goes on, just a beat. Like 3 beats longer than it should, but it just makes it a little bit extra funny there. We of course get the "I've got a bad feeling about this" line, but BB-8 cuts Poe off, and Poe's like, "Well, I still feel it was worth being sad or whatever." Like, I thought that was a nice little bit.
Yeah, I like that one, and it was funny getting that after like the Star Wars Visions thing, where like people say that almost like every episode.
Yeah,
so it was funny to get that again, but like in like a funny take on it.
Yeah, and then we have like after the final story, we of course have like kind of the wrapping up of the Vinay storyline, where it was all because he wanted to get that holocron and get the power and kind of exploit the kid and all that stuff. And then we also get like just a whole bunch of like horror like references and gags. Like obviously we get like the battle droids coming back as like zombies. Basically we get the "here's Johnny" moment from The Shining.
Yes, yeah.
But that was a great one of like, here's B113872, and it's just the droid saying his designation number.
That was one of the ones I couldn't remember, but I actually did really like that moment, and him saying that is really funny to me. But it's when the axe came through the wall is when I was like, I got it. I was like, oh, I did that. I actually laughed. I was like, that's so funny.
Yeah,
like he's just hiding in this closet.
Yeah,
and the axe is just coming through.
Yep. The only place we have like wood in this entire casino or whatever, just for that visual. And then I don't know if this was like a direct reference to anything. It just kind of looked like BB-8 like slips in some paint or whatever, and it's like green paint mixed with like his orange coloring. Now, like for me, it was like, okay, he's supposed to be a pumpkin now, I guess. But it's like it's like a blink and you'll miss it, because like you only see like the pumpkin eyes kind of thing, like for like boom, and then it's gone. So I was like, cool, but yeah, it was just like such a short thing that I was like, you didn't give that time to even land, really. But hey,
it was kind of the same thing with Poe, because they may give Poe the like skeleton costume, and then he just wears that for the rest. But that's not even like a bit or anything. That's just kind of like that. Like they needed to get him into like a Halloween costume.
yeah. That's so. Every year, they do like advent calendars for little Lego figures. In the last couple of years, I've gotten like Lego Star Wars ones that like my mom will give me, and I'll like, you open one every day or whatever. And and last year's had like the Lego Holiday Special characters in there. So I wonder if they'll somehow figure out a way to like put, Poe in the skeleton outfit in that or something like that, and pumpkin BB-8 or something like that. But also shout out to BB-8 just going on a murder spree with the droids. I was like, all right, BB-8, you like, all right, sure, yep. You just like use that grapple hook, and then just apparently in a thing that I did not know you could do, you just shoot your head off and just like have it like fly like a discus and decapitate 3 battle droids. Cool. Boomerang style. Go nuts. But yeah, and then we of course have kind of that, like, basically the Lord of the Rings Gollum kind of ending of Vinay falling into the lava. And as I alluded to earlier, like they end with NIL8, which I did appreciate. Like, because I almost had like the same reaction as Poe, whereas like when we got introduced to that character, I was like, what is that supposed to be? Like nilate? What? And because I just didn't pay attention to them, like how he was saying it or whatever. So when it's like annihilate, I was like, oh God, yeah, that was a dumb bit. I definitely should have picked up on that sooner. But we have her kind of like coming out of the lava, like half destroyed, and then Vinay's just hand reaches up. So seemingly we're maybe going to get another Treehouse of Terror, terrifying tales next year, in potentially in this vein. So yeah, I think that was probably all the stuff I had for it. Overall, yeah, it was a fun little, I mean, it's 45 minutes. I sat down, I watched it a few days ago, and then I, just to refresh my memory, I threw it on again right before we started recording, kind of thing, and just kind of took some notes, and yeah, it was a fun enough time. Very like harmless, very like, I saw somebody asking around the other day on like social media and stuff of like, hey, like what are like good scary things that aren't really scary, but like that kind of can introduce kids to Halloween kind of stuff. And I would definitely say like this absolutely like falls in that bucket, where it's just going to be like, hey, there's not really anything scary about this. At least I don't see anything really scary about this, but like a kid might, like when Dean's eyes go red because he's being, taken over by the lightsaber or whatever. It's like, oh yeah, that could be troublesome or whatever. But yeah, I thought that was like, it's like, again, much like I think Lego Star Wars Holiday Special, we're not really the intended audience of this kind of thing. It's definitely like a, hey, this is for like 10 and under kind of, at least, if that, maybe like 5 and under. But it's still fun enough time. Had a good, because it's also weird because like, it can't really be for that audience because that audience doesn't know The Shining and isn't going to get those references and stuff like that. So yeah, definitely, I guess it's like, oh, it's for them and their parents. And we just kind of fall in that bucket, the parents bucket, just without kids.
No, exactly. And that's because that's what I would like with these ones. I think like, yeah, like if I did have kids or like a family, I could totally see watching this, especially if I was like, because I was like, oh, I love Star Wars, and if you get them into it.
Yeah.
But it's like they go so far into like some deep cuts and references and things. Like you could tell the people who make it definitely love it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, there's so many references and things that I'm like, yeah, this has to be for like the adults or the everyone else watching, like The Shining and like some of those other things, even just within Star Wars references, where I'm like, oh yeah, you're really bringing up some of these deep cuts of things, or even in this, they're like, yeah, let's go to like extended canon or things that we don't normally get sometimes. Like,
yeah, indeed. Oh, you like that's I forgot to mention. Of course, we ran into Watto over there on Tatooine in the Wookiee's paw. He's the one who gives the Wookiee's paw to Luke. And
that was one where I was like, man, I guess he would be on Tatooine around that same time, theoretically.
Yeah, like, if he never left. I mean, he's down on his luck in Revenge of the Sith, so like, I mean, he seemed to be in better spirits there, like 20 years later or whatever, or 18 years later with Luke there. But yeah, it's still probably just slumming it there in Mos Eisley. I did appreciate just the like abruptness of every time Luke makes a wish, like immediately somebody's there to say hey, you look like you want to get off this rock, or hey, you should be like, what are we going to do with this extra pilot outfit? There we go, give it to him. And like, I appreciated that, like, just they did a good job with the timing of those jokes, I think. But yeah, so let's go ahead and grade this A+ to F. What do you want to give this one, Frank?
I think with this one, I'll probably go like B or B+. I'll probably just go B, I guess. I'll stick it with the normal. But I like I said, I liked it, and it's fun, and especially like if anyone has like a family out there or kids, I think they would definitely enjoy that too, and it's a great time to just sit down and watch. But I mean, I think there's still some enjoyment there, even if you just like Star Wars,
Yeah, I think I'm right there with you. I think it's a solid B, maybe B- or something like that. It's not like great, but it's fine. It's fun. It's harmless like nothing. I don't get mad at this like, Logan gets mad at Rise of Skywalker or something like that, but it's a fine time. Not it's not trying to, rewrite the canon, even though like theoretically all of these do seem to be like adding to like the post episode 9 kind of story stuff. But
That was a thought I had as well, where I was like, man, both of these specials are technically like the most current thing we have in the timeline, because they both take place after Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
And they're not like canon, I guess, but I was just like, man, that's funny that like this is all we have now.
Yeah. And I guess the tease also there of like Poe being like, hey, you should meet my friend Rey, like she can kind of help you with your force powers and stuff. It's like, yep, there you go. But yeah, just it's fine. It's fun stuff. It's harmless stuff. It's 45 minutes of your life, and then you go back, you get a few gags to iconic horror things, and then you get these in particular, like I would say this is worth it just for the like the what if that we kind of talked about of the Wookiees Paw story, is just a fun like spin on that tale, especially because I did love we didn't touch about it, but I do love like the end of that like that's not how it happened, and Grabla the Hutts or whatever, like, are you saying Luke Skywalker didn't blow up the Death Star? He's like, I mean, yeah, but not like that. Like, I was like, nice, well done.
No, that was a good one. Yeah, I really like that.
Yeah. So extra credit, other suggestions if you like this. We have Lego Star Wars All-Stars, Lego Star Wars The Freemaker Adventures, Lego Star Wars The Resistance Rises, Lego Star Wars Droid Tales, Lego Star Wars Holiday Special, Lego Star Wars All-Stars Shorts, Lego Star Wars The Freemaker Adventure Shorts, and lastly, Lego Star Wars The New Yoda Chronicles Clash of the Skywalkers. Pretty much, I think all of those except the holiday special were in the holiday special, like suggestions from last year. And basically one of the New Yoda Chronicles got bumped to put the holiday special in for this year. Extracurriculars, you watch anything else on Disney Plus this week? Did you watch, like, for example, did you watch the finale of What If?
Yep, yeah, that's pretty much all I've been watching besides this and some of the other things we've talked about already, is just What If. But I finally I watched this earlier today, and then I watched the finale of What If right after that. So I'm finally all caught up and kind of finished with that series.
Yep. What'd you think of the finale? Spoiler free.
I liked it. I think like ultimately I still think it was kind of like the episode itself I think is good, but I just think as a whole, even the way it end caps the series is still kind of weak, and like the whole series as a whole I think is a little bit weak. But I mean, like I think even then there was still some really cool moments, and some the action I thought was really 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 good.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I agree, and I like it's one of those like watching the finale and kind of like putting the whole series in context, like, okay, this wasn't meant to be like earth shattering, let's change the MCU, like maybe Loki kind of does a little bit, or some of those, like some of the movies obviously like are gonna drastically change stuff, whereas like these I think are fun little spins on stuff. Like I liked kind of how this one starts off with kind of like Captain Carter doing her take on like the opening of the Winter Soldier, for example, and stuff like that. And they, I think, set up some interesting ideas for where they'll pick up stories for season 2. One of the things that's just the weirdest is this idea that like there's probably a deleted episode somewhere in there of what happened to lead like to the Gamora that we get in that finale, because we obviously didn't get her standalone episode, whereas like everything else is referencing another episode we've seen, even kind of the finale little bit with like Black Widow going back to one of the earlier episodes or something like that. It's like every other episode is accounted for in this, and then there's like this weird thing that doesn't belong to any of those episodes but probably did. So I wonder if like if in a weird bit of like retconning or something, if they'll give us that what if next year or in season 2 or whatever, and then be like, oh, okay, so that's how those pieces fit together. Like I still like, we didn't need it. I think like everything that gets introduced alongside that character is like, okay, it's clear enough what's supposed to happen here, and it's just probably like, oh, that was probably introduced in that standalone thing that just doesn't exist. But yeah, I enjoyed it. It was a fun enough time. I watched it basically like before going to bed that night, and was like, okay, that was cool. Yeah, I mean, like, I think I'm still pretty much where we were kind of last week of like, it's a fun time,
Yeah.
but nothing crazy to write home about. And I think they could have had more fun with it, and maybe they will in season 2. Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's probably the only thing I checked out on there as well. I don't know if you ever saw Black Widow, but Black Widow is now available to anybody, so you can go watch that one in the MCU as well. Yeah, that is gonna do it for this episode of That D Plus Show. Thank you, Frank, for joining me to talk about Lego Star Wars Terrifying Tales. Next week, for anybody that wants to join us, will be Muppet. Muppet Haunted Mansion, which comes out the day that this episode goes out. So yeah, we'll be covering that in next week's episode as kind of the continuation of our Halloween spooktacular. And then we'll go into our own, version of the Treehouse of Terrors with The Simpsons after that. So yeah, that's what you have to look forward to on That D Plus Show over the next couple weeks. You can follow Frank at Irrelevant Jokes. Anything you want to give a shout out to there, Frank?
Yeah, I just want to give a quick shout out to one of our other podcasts, That News You Care About. The episode that just went up this week is you, me, and Logan talking about the Blue Point acquisition, and as well as Sora in Kingdom Hearts, and just kind of some of the most recent stuff that's been happening. But that was a fun episode, and I thought there was some good discussion there, so I just wanted to recommend that to everybody out there.
Indeed, shout out to that. I thought of you as I was pulling together the cast because one of your shout outs was about Marcus Phoenix. So when I was adding in the John DiMaggio stuff, I was like, oh, there you go. Full circle.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely go check out that episode. You can follow me at Trevor J. Starkey. I will give a shout out to, I guess it's kind of like a twofer, because on this week's That Nerdy Site show, I talked about the DLC for Life is Strange True Colors Wavelengths, as well as my time with Chicory, A Colorful Tale. And Cameron talked about a handful of things he's been playing, including New Worlds. And also shouting out the YouTube Let's Plays that we do. The YouTube Let's Plays that went up on the channel this week were my Life is Strange Wavelengths, as well as the first chapter of a Chicory, or Chicory. So yeah, go check those out as well. And yeah, if once again, if you liked what you heard, please like, rate, review, subscribe, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. You can follow all of us over at That Nerdy Site if you don't already. And if you do feel so inclined, you can always support us on Patreon at patreon.com/thatnerdysite. Thank you again for joining us. As always, stay nerdy, be good to each other, class dismissed, and since it's Star Wars themed, I can do this again. May the Force be with you.